Well, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Dialogue on Soul TV. My name is Prince Apollo. Welcome to the big show. It is the time when we reflect on major events of the week. The panel analyzes those events, and we also expect feedback from you to tell us what you think about those major issues. Welcome aboard. On the show this morning, we look at a very eventful week. Sad moments here, joyous moments on another side. The passing of a legend in the field of journalism, Shaka Sali, a Ugandan who worked for more than 20 years on the Voice of America talk show, the Straight Talk Africa. He inspired many of us, and we commiserate with the family and the country at large. But we also mourn our citizens who perished in the floods. Reports indicate that more than 7 people, at least 7 people died in the floods that swept the whole of Kampala after heavy rains pounded many parts of this country. We also pray that their souls rest in peace, but also we implore the authorities and everyone to play their part in preventing such calamities. Well, other things happened. The eventual swearing in of the Kawempe MP-elect, Elias Luyembazi-Nalukola. We can also speak about the claims by the first Vice President of South Sudan, Riek Machar, claiming that Updf is deployed in violation of the status agreement that brought the transitional government into power. It's another issue we may have to ponder about. Then we also look at the Umeme exit, the company that has been in charge of distribution of electricity in this country, and the controversy surrounding its buyout. That will be our major focus for discussion this morning. My name is Prince Apollo. I'm really privileged to have you as our viewer, but let me introduce the panel. Dr. Gerard Wansala, a public policy researcher, but also an associate lecturer at Uganda Management Institute. I am always pleased to have you on the show, Dr. Werihe.
Thank you, Apollo. Good morning. I'm happy to be here, and good morning to my sister on the left.
Sure.
Happy to be with you in the studio. She has been a big voice in the area of trade, you know. We don't have so many players that are visible as her. So we thank you. Greetings to our viewers, and of course to my people in United Republic of Chirinya. Yeah, we are here to engage with you for 2 hours.
Did they survive the floods?
Well, I think it's our people in Kasokoso, Chinawataka area there who did not survive. There were some deaths reported there. As you know, it's a catchment area for water from Chambogo, from Banda, but it has really narrowed because of illegal construction.
Sure.
And what pains is that these constructions take place when the city authority and other agents of government, NEMA, are watching. So those deaths are not a surprise.
Sure.
And if more rain continues, we may lose more people in that area.
Very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Well, our viewers are privileged also to have on the show this morning Dr. Jenny Nalunga. Jenny Nalunga is the executive director for SEATIN Uganda, and SEATIN is short for Southern Eastern Africa Trade Information Negotiations Institute. Like Doctor said, he's a voice in matters of trade, investment, and economy. and economics. I'm happy to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you so much, Apollo. And good morning, our viewers. I'm so happy to be here to talk about issues of the economy. And because for me, I really believe that we can be able to produce, we can be able to industrialize, we can be able to create jobs. You know, the opportunities are there. It's a matter of putting our house in order. And I think when we talk about the whole women issue, because it's really key to the economy, we'll be able to unravel some of those issues. I would like also to commensurate with people, the family of Shak Sali. He was an icon, a real icon. It's really sad that he has gone to our Maker. And also the people who have died in the floods. But we need the rain.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to send my happy greetings to the people in the villages, Kasanda, Nkalwe Masaka. I know now they are in the garden.
We are sure we'll have food.
Food and coffee and all those those products. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jane. And it is also my honor to introduce to you Honorable Mugore Stephen, Member of Parliament for Kabweri County, but a staunch trade unionist. Happy to have you back on the dialogue, Honorable.
Thank you, Prince Apollo, and colleagues.
Sure.
It has been a while. I've not been around on the dialogue for
some time.
2 months almost.
True.
I am back. I'm happy to be here again. I greet all Ugandans, most especially my people from Kabweri County, who sent me to Parliament, who are still willing to send me back.
Did they survive the heavy rains?
They had the heavy rains, they survived.
The storms.
But they didn't survive the storms during the dry season. But the rains, we are still okay. In fact, 2 of my areas in my constituency, we had to get relief from the Prime Minister's office.
Sure.
Because there was real destruction. We had a storm during the dry spell. And I'm happy with the government and most especially the disaster office under the Prime Minister's office that facilitated us. Even currently, we are going to receive some iron sheets because many of the schools were roofed by the storm. So we didn't survive the storm during the spell. But the rains, we are always okay because we are in the plains, but the drainage system is natural because of the swamps that we have. So it swallows all the water.
I imagine, before we kick off the show, I imagine if we experienced what we saw in Kampala on Wednesday morning, and we are told the rains spent only 4 to 5 hours, if it happened the next day and the other day, or it rained for more than 6, 7, 8 hours, what would happen? Looking at the devastation, the cars being swept away, people, dying in that huge torrent. Just a comment. Are we safe?
We are not. We will not. It will be like the Noah's Ark. if it rains like for 4 days, then it will be like a Noah's Ark.
But I think we need to plan better. And we need to realize that climate change is real. We talk about climate adaptation, climate mitigation, looking at infrastructure. There is a whole United Nations debate around climate change, and we need to be part of that, and we need to factor that. We are part of that. Okay. We are part of that debate. We have made commitments on what needs to be done. So we need to ensure that those commitments are translated into budgets, into actual action. So we need an action plan on climate change instead of waiting until it's very dry, then it rains. We should be happy we have the water. Then we'll be crying throughout the year. So government needs to plan better.
What I can considerably say is that during the dry spell, there is a lot of construction, both legal and illegal construction.
In wetlands and
everywhere.
In highlands.
On island, everywhere. And the more we construct, the more we get more water on the roofs. That comes at a high speed. The more we pave, the more we get running water because the water is not soaked directly. So during a dry season, there is a lot of construction. Then there is illegal construction also. They can't construct during a wet season like this. They are also constructing during this, but the corruptive tendencies we have with the powers that be within the local governments, people construct, and the drainage system is suffocated.
Sure.
That causes more problems. So, coupled with the water, where the paved surface is
the runoff is
too much. Runoff is too much, too much construction, and again where it is going to be drained, it has been clogged.
The wetlands have been encroached on.
With this thing, we are all in a mess because you even find a Prado, somebody throwing a used bottle out from a Prado. Where would you think somebody who owns a Prado should be having some ideas
it's very serious
of this post?
It's very serious, but who the person speaking is a member of parliament who has a platform where he can actually make his voice heard.
So if he's lamenting,
and the member of,
I'm not lamenting.
The member of the national resistance movement, the ruling government.
I'm not lamenting, I'm telling you the mess which we are all in. If even the capital authority gives us dustbins, which are not segregated, that you put a plastic here, you put decomposable material here. They give you just a dustbin on the roadsides throughout Kampala where you can put everything.
Thank you. So, it's a serious concern, and we pray that something reasonable happens, and we may those who died rest in peace.
Amen.
Dr. Jeda Dwere Wansala, a serious concern about UPDF deployment in South Sudan. I'm looking at a letter Dr. Riek Machar wrote appealing to the UN Secretary General UN Secretary General, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, His Excellency Bankole Adeoye, the Commissioner African Union, and Peace and Security Council, His Excellency Ismail Omar Gule, Chairman of the Summit of IGAD Assembly and Heads of State. And Dr. Machar writes, I'm writing to express concern on the presence, deployment, and intervention of Ugandan military in South Sudan. This intervention constitutes a grave violation of the revitalized agreement on the resolution of the conflict in the Republic of South Sudan. And he mentions articles. The Ugandan military entered South Sudan fully equipped with armored and Air Force units in violation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2428 of July 2018. And he also continues, the resolution imposes arms embargo on the Republic of South Sudan. The Ugandan forces are currently taking part in airstrikes against civilians in the counties of Nasir, Longochuk, Longichuk and Ulang in Upper Nile State, and Okobo County in Jonglei State. The letter is a 2-page letter, but the concern is, as we were told, that the UPDF was deployed after Salva Kiir, the president of South Sudan, appealed to His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni to have UPDF go and protect the fragile state in Juba, but through an MOU of 2014. Here, Riek Machar is petitioning the UN and other international and continental bodies to rein on Uganda and Ugandan forces intervening in that situation. We said we are protecting our trade interests and what, and actually the last time I asked you about this topic, you said it was okay to have UPDF deployed. It was timely and okay. But here, Dr. Riek Machar is petitioning UN. Are we in South Sudan illegally or not?
Thank you very much, Apple. I think I want to put my record clear.
Please.
That the last week I was here and we talked about this. I said that our second largest market as per now in this South Sudan, after Kenya. So I say that if the UPDF had gone there in Juba to protect the business community, to protect our people who are there, I did not have any problem. My only concern at the time was the issue of accountability, because UPDF is overstretched. We are in Somalia. At least in Somalia, the bill is paid by someone else. But in Juba, we rarely get information on how we are financing those operations.
No, it is
but
Parliament.
Of course,
it is Parliament that actually this week approved. I think it's a sum of figure. I'm not sure. I don't have of head, but a figure was approved for the mission in South Sudan.
Yeah, but classified expenditure, even supplementaries from defense, have been continuous. If you check our budgets from I don't know when, every SAP that comes, you see their classified expenditure for defense. So, and many times they just tend to increase. So if we are in Somalia, if we are in South Sudan, we are in Congo, we are in Central African Republic, in Equatorial Guinea, for a country where it's 2 million people, HIV people depend on a foreign country for ARVs, and people still suffer jiggers in some parts of this country, then we behave like a superpower. For me, that was the concern, the aspect of accountability, because we never come to hear that we went to South Sudan. The MOU is detailed as this. This is what we spent. Is the government of South Sudan financing part of the budget for the operation? I think those are the questions that I raised at the time. But in principle, having peace in Juba as our major market, it's important. The other concern that I raised was that why do we always go alone? If we have institutions like the EAC, we have the standby force of East Africa, which was expelled in DRC the other time. Can't we at least have a cover by going with other partners within the East African community? Because when you go alone, you are isolated. Now, what Riek Machar refers to, in 2018, you remember there was a serious war in South Sudan, pitting the SPLN government and SPLN opposition led by Machar. And at the time, it is estimated that about 400,000 South Sudanese died in that conflict. So the 2018 agreement establishes this position, you see, of the first vice president, which is now occupied by Riek Machar, and it establishes the modalities of how they will work. In the same agreement, Uganda was signed as one of the guarantors of the peace process. So if you are one of the guarantors of the peace process, then you will be assumed to be neutral in a conflict, so that you can win the trust from
both sides.
Now, where the challenge is that we are quoting an MOU of 2014, which is pre the agreement of 2018, and I'm seeing concerning reports in the international media that actually we used weapons. This, of course, is supposed to be investigated.
Yeah.
That our airplanes used the chemical weapons that have killed hundreds of the Nuer. That's the ethnic group.
That is the major concern. I think that must be a major concern if these claims are coming up, and there is also a claim of our force being deployed illegally. I think that compounds a big concern.
Absolutely. That's why I raised the question of why do we always rush alone? Under what framework? If you are quoting an MOU of 2014, and then there was another agreement, which basically when it came into force, it invalidated the previous MOU. So clearly, it is visible that in the conflict, we have become partisan.
Oh, yeah.
We have become partisan. And for me, this is a point of concern, because if the
UPDF
news
is protecting the party of Salva Kiir, Salva Kiir,
SPLA
and isolating
government and isolating the Nuer, and then going deeper to use gunships and others to bomb. What they call themselves the White Army, but the White Army is basically in the rural areas where there are also civilian settlements, and it's reported that some of their chiefs,
should this be
were also killed.
Should this be a concern to us as a country and citizens?
Absolutely, it is a concern should be a concern to the public, because we finance the UPDF. Without government does not have money without the citizen of Uganda. So if we are
but Parliament approved the deployment.
Yeah, not everything that is illegal is right. You can approve, okay? Legally, you are shielded by the law, but then maybe what you are doing is not moral or is not necessarily right. And in this case, we are already talking about the conflict of interest we have there as guarantors of the peace process, and also violating the agreements that brought these people together.
Okay. Thank you so much, Doctor. And Honorable Mugode, make a quick comment also on this whole matter, because we still have memories of the deployment in DRC, which culminated into the international, is it the international criminal case of
the International Court of Justice,
case, where we still have a debt to pay. Is it 10 trillion? Of 10 trillion to pay for our actions, the actions of our officers in DRC, where we were accused of plundering the DRC. And here we have somebody claiming we have again deployed illegally.
Yeah, the deployment is not illegal. And that's why we approved it as Parliament. In the military, there is what we call triple S. Speed, supremacy, and surprise.
Yeah.
Because Uganda in this agreement is a guarantor, is not a mere witness. And as a senior negotiator, even literally in a bank, if you guarantee somebody's loan and you see that person is going out of the country, you can call police to arrest this person because you will be the one to pay. So if Uganda is a guarantor of this agreement between the two,
it is arresting the person.
It is arresting the situation.
Arresting the person they guaranteed.
No, it is arresting the situation, because the agreement did not say Machar should overthrow Salva Kiir.
Did he attempt to do that?
There was an attempt. That is why Uganda goes in. Because Uganda didn't go in on its own call, it was also on the call.
Machar is the one who is petitioning the UN.
Yes, it was also on the call of the president, Salva Kiir. That is how Uganda goes in, to maintain the status quo, so that the agreement is maintained, other than one overthrowing the other. Yes, because if I'm a guarantor, there is something we agreed upon, and the agreement was that we maintain this status quo. The term of office of Salva Kiir is not yet over.
True.
Why would Machar like to overthrow? So, whereas UPDF deployed without others, the others would come in later because Uganda is a guarantor. Whereas the others are witnesses, Uganda is a guarantor of this peace accord. So I suppose that they were right, because if I tell you the speed, if you don't use the speed, by the time Uganda would go, or the IGAD, the government would have been already overthrown. So use speed. So they use speed and supremacy. That the Ugandan army is more supreme than those other armies.
You've heard of claims that there is an agreement, there is an arms embargo that stops us from deploying, but also going with armory and gunships, and now there are claims that we are even bombing innocent civilians.
That is the claim. That needs to be verified, because that is not right.
Okay.
That's not right in all protocols. But if I'm going to secure a military coup, you cannot expect me to go empty-handed.
Okay, so we need to wait for the UN maybe to respond. And
yes, UN has not yet responded, and
but we've
investigation
been told
is yet.
Even Machar has been arrested, so it looks like the conflict is escalating, and that's not good news in any way.
Now, obviously, the conflict may continue to escalate because there was an attempt. That's why it is Machar writing to the UN.
Thank you so much, Jane. You make a comment, but I want you also to address yourself to this concern now. Like I referred to the issue of when we deployed in DRC, and we have now 10 trillion to pay back to DRC for what we plundered in DRC, and now here we are being accused also of deploying illegally. We don't know what may come out as a claim after this operation.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a very interesting debate from Honorable and Dr. Gerard, and I agree to their submissions. But I think we need also, I was asking myself, what's legal? What would constitute legal? Were we, as UPDF, as Uganda Army, were we invited by the president that come, you come and help me? Does that constitute legality? You know, we need to
the legality constitutes after Parliament approves it.
Yeah, but even if you approve when you are going to invade another country, it doesn't make it legal. So we need to look at the legality in terms of the other side where we invited, and in terms of this side, whether it was constitutionally done. I think we need to consider that. And I think it's also important to consider the fact that looking at what happened in DRC, that we don't repeat that in South Sudan. And I also hope that the UPDF now in Sudan will be there to keep peace, you know, to keep peace, to be on one-sided. I know they are going there to keep the president in power, but I think the overriding aim should be to keep peace.
You know how many skirmishes have killed Ugandans.
So to ensure that everybody is safe. But I think we also need, Dr. Gerard raised a very important issue also about our extension into a number of countries. Do we have the resources, you know, to be able to to keep peace, to be peacekeepers within the region. Are we paid for it? You know, so we need to consider a number of issues.
Sure.
And there are so many ways of ensuring peace within the region. And maybe it's because the region is a bit conflicted, but I think Machar would have also written to the Secretariat, to the East African Secretariat, you know, and I think we need to strengthen our East African Secretariat so that it can be able to handle not just economic issues, but also political and military issues to ensure peace. Because I see like ECOWAS, they do try, they do try. But East Africa, we are failing. That's why we are going to Arab countries. I was so unhappy to see Tshisekedi and President seated with this man. I said, really, you know, if we are to talk about peace as brothers and sisters in Africa, I think we need to do it better. So even here, I think we need to discuss peace issues without going into fighting.
I hear you, Dr. Jane. Gerard, as we conclude, the idea of East African standby force, even if, like Mugole said, that we needed to act swiftly and deploy hastily as we did it. But here we have an East African standby force. Should be standby as the word stands. Just a quick comment and we'll wind up.
Actually, if you hear the name standby force, you would imagine
should be ready.
It is something that you would come together very quickly, assemble, countries contributing to the logistics, and you get in there. But if you go, say, to its secretariat in Jinja, in Gaddafi, it's almost empty. No staff.
So it's still a name.
So it takes the heads of states, like you saw when we deployed in Congo, for them to meet several times in order to agree to contribute forces to go. Yeah, but also there's a lot of mistrust in the region, in our region. You find different heads of states don't trust the other. Then you find
they don't speak at the same wavelength.
Absolutely. Like right now, you see, we are also in IGAD, but Kenya is accused of working with rapid support forces, the rebels of Sudan. Other Sudan cannot trust Kenya and Uganda. Actually, I'm seeing the Sudan Khartoum more pronounced about Uganda leaving South Sudan. Yes, and they don't feel safer that our army is involved in all those areas we are talking about. So if we can restore this confidence in EAC and we discuss as transparently as possible and stick to the objective of the cooperation. But today, there are so many different actors, different objectives, and they are there for convenience. Just
thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Gerard Wanzala, a public policy researcher, but also an associate lecturer at Uganda Management Institute. My name is Prince Apollo. We have Jane Nalonga, the executive director for Seatini Uganda, but also Honorable Mugole Stephen, the member of parliament for Kabweli County, a member of the National Resistance Movement, the ruling party. Thank you so much, our viewers. You can send in your comments and observations on these and other matters. Tell us what you think. Make it really brief, concise, and to the point. And send it by SMS or WhatsApp. Let's know what you're thinking. The number is 0701609906. It's running on the screen. And gentlemen and the lady, let's look at the controversy surrounding the Umeme buyout.
I wanted to conclude something on that South Sudan.
I request that we move on, Honorable, because of time. There's this controversy that surrounds the buyout value, and Umeme has been an electricity distributor for 20 years, until government decided not to renew its contract. The deadline is 31st this month, and the push and shove that has been in this transitional period as the company winds up its operations ready to hand over to UDCL, it's really concerning. And we now ask questions whether it's real, because we have had a history of bad contracts with government. When you hear now Umeme initially, the amount Umeme initially quoted as its buyout value, then what was later tabled to Parliament before they acquired that loan to buy out Umeme, then later what the Auditor General quoted, it's really concerning. Dr. Jared Wanzala, please, you can kick off this discussion. I don't know if you're concerned. Eventually, we were told that on Monday, there will be a handover at Lugogo Ume offices. But what has happened in these 2 weeks? The Umeme stating in their statement that they must get their full amount before they hand over the distribution network, the system. Then the Minister for Energy also making her stand very clear that what the Auditor General quoted is what they must pay Umeme. Don't you find something unusual about this buyout?
Yeah, Apple, I think before I jump into this, these arguments of on the value, we have the viewers who are viewing, and they need to understand how this has come about. World over, governments give concessions to private companies to run various service delivery roles, including utilities like electricity, as you see. So because of some reasons at the time, when we had Uganda Electricity Board,
UEB,
that it was characterized with inefficiency. They said it wasn't performing well, it was loss-making. They gave all those reasons. And also they said there was need to attract private investment into the sector. And basically, these are usually the driving arguments for governments to give concessions to private sector. One, to attract the expertise of private companies. Expertise, of course, includes the knowledge, the technology, and the know-how of what the private companies can bring in the sector. The other is the to attract the investment, private investment. Then the other is to leverage government resources by transferring the role of infrastructure development to the private sector. However, there are guiding principles when going into these public agreements like concessions. They are very clear. One of them is fairness, fair play.
Oh yeah.
That usually when you go only for single sourcing to source one company, and that is how actually Umeme came in, that you have not given an opportunity for competition to prevail. Probably other companies could bring a better deal, but they have been locked out. So you can potentially cause losses to the government and the taxpayer. The other one is transparency. That while in these agreements you can sign non-disclosure where some sections of the contract may not be open to the public, but the processes, okay, the legal frameworks should be transparent and very clear, okay? And the other one is that acting in good faith, that there are no individuals. It's like me going to look in the mirror, I see my image, then I begin talking to my image, and claim that I am making an agreement with someone else, yet I am talking to myself. So that is not acting in good faith, and it can potentially lead to people signing agreements that lead to losses for generations.
Are you saying all those three were present in this agreement?
Well, while I know that umeme is an East African Swahili word, umeme, but we are told that umeme came from South Africa.
It is a South African company, I hope.
Exactly. So if I lift the veil of the original directors, which I'm not privileged to do, that's when I would tell you who are the original, but I don't have the privilege. Oh. But right now, we can forget about that. There were issues of transparency. There were issues of lack of transparency. There were issues of single sourcing. Then there are clauses that are very punitive to the country. Like now, I think Umema has already approached Shonubi and company advocates that starting on the 1st of April, if their money has not been seen in the account, then it will attract a 9% penalty every day. So is that an agreement with a money lender on the street who charges these people who, you know, is it quick money or quick loan? But if it's a government, okay? Because for me, what I know is that there is a certain amount of investment that Umeme invested in, okay? And over time, they were supposed to recoup. Now, I think the agreement says if they have not recouped everything, the value which has not been recouped,
you have to pay them
that
back.
Is the one we have to pay back. But they also have obligations. I was checking the information of the Capital Markets Authority. Umeme has over 7,000 shareholders, and it is listed on our stock exchange as well as Nairobi Stock Exchange. So they have an obligation to their shareholders. And if you look at their business portfolio, Uganda was the cash cow. So meaning that if Uganda was a cash cow
and it is pulling
out, then what business are they going to run? So the obligations, they may be delisted after paying the shareholders. So, and also there are reports from the International Capital Markets Union that actually the shares were overvalued. Some at the time of initial public offering of shares. But the share which was estimated at 134 was sold at 434 and has been constant over a very long period of time.
Okay.
So,
so Doctor, you make a case that this was a bad contract, and indeed that is why that was a good decision for the Ugandan government to terminate or to not to renew it.
Yeah, I think it was a bad contract. Over time, while they have achieved in reducing some power losses, they have invested in some substations and so forth, but the cost of power has remained very high. Partly the president was complaining about what we guaranteed as their annual turnover of 20%, which other business in Uganda is giving, including treasury bills.
Doctor, now speak about this controversy and about the buyout value. Do you find it really unusual with these agreements and contracts?
Of course, it would be wrong of me to put my own value because I have not conducted an evaluation. But I want to believe that ERA, Electricity Regulatory Authority, which was put in place to regulate, could be having a fair figure, and then also backed up by the Auditor General's audit report, which was presented before the Speaker last week and put the value at
$180 million.
Exactly.
As opposed to 190.
Yes. You know, when you put this figure in the dollars, it looks small. But this is a hell of money.
Those are 432
exactly.
billions.
But before they first demanded, I think around 900 billion, it came back to 700 billion. So if you put it in shillings, the way when we're talking about GDP figures, government, they usually talk it in the shillings to make it look big. But when now we are talking about compensation, they are sticking more into dollars to make it look small. But this is a hell of money in our economy.
All right.
So I believe they should be sticking to the value, and the government should not give in to pressure.
Government should not give in to pressure. Dr. Jane, what do you make of this buyout and the controversy we have witnessed in these 2 weeks? And I even hope it's not over, because until it's over.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you so much, Gerard, for that overview. But I just wanted to add on a little bit for our viewers to understand where we are, because I think for me this is really, really important for us as Uganda to learn a lesson. In fact, what we need to do is to learn lessons from this Umeme saga. Because for me, I believe at the end of that day, we are going to pay. We will have to pay. I will come back to that. But I want to also to go back and look at where we are, and to look at the whole. Doctor talked about UEB. UEB was unbundled. UEB was one company, Uganda Electricity Board. It encompassed the generation, the transmission, the distribution. So it was unbundled. We have generation on its own, transmission, distribution on its own, and with each trading with each other, which is also a problem. That's why in our budget we have deemed what? Those are the deemed electricity, because it's generated. We have to pay for it, whether we have consumed it or not. So there are so many things which deemed energy, you know. So there are so many things which we need to question. Did we do it right? And we can learn from other countries. Even UK, by the way, they unbundled, but they bundled again. You know, Australia, Germany, they unbundled because there was a wave of privatization. What Doctor was saying is right. You know, there is a narrative which was sold to us, even now, that, you know, the private sector is efficient, they will bring in investment, they have the technology, and we bought into that, and we privatized. In fact, when we are looking at electricity, we need also to remember UCB, and that's what it was. They told us, those of you who have read the Economic Hitman know when we say they told us. So they told us that government is corrupt, government is inefficient, get private sector. But when you look at Umeme, in addition to the fact that the procurement was so bad,
procuring the contract,
it was really bad. So when you look at you look at the fact that they told us that private sector is efficient, private sector is going to bring in the resources. Women didn't bring in.
We are now going back to government.
Exactly. Because when women came in, government got a loan, IDA loan. The good thing about that loan, unlike these loans we are getting now, the loan was a concessional loan under IDA. What bank that has that of IDA? But we got a loan. Government gave the loan to UEDCL to be able to provide the materials which UEB put up, which Umeme put up. So we need to debunk this whole issue of saying Umeme came in, Umeme helped us. What Umeme did is management. Because there was a lot of corruption, they put systems in place, and they were able to connect many people, because they are saying they came in when they were just 280,000 something customers. By now we are 2.2. But it was purely a private company. Government has put in a lot, you know, and
we are paying a lot
paying for the loans, paying for the buyout, and now we are back to the other square one. We are back because government had to borrow again from ABSA to give UEDCL to be able to start all over again. So we need, for me, what I think is learning, because again, we are making same mistakes in Lubowa, same mistakes in Atiak, same money going out.
Thank you.
That belief that our government is corrupt, we can't do anything, it's the private sector. So I think we need to
learn. Dr. Jane, thank you so much. We will be going for a break. And when we return in the second hour, we'll continue to interrogate the events and processes in the Umeme buyout, especially the disagreements on the value and how even why anyway would Parliament be rushing when they knew that the contract had to be terminated, had to expire on 31st.
Since 2021.
We rush to borrow from Stanbic Bank, I think.
Yeah, but borrowed from Stanbic.
Then the Auditor General's report, the special report by the Auditor General, is not debated because there is no time. Why? Why should government be in this position? And eventually we may end up in court cases, court litigation. Like, is it Doctor who said that they have even engaged their lawyers? Yeah, and it must be from the contract. From the contract, it has to be in London. Not
of course, arbitration is London.
We go for a break. When we return, the dialogue will dig deeper into this controversy surrounding the Umeme buyout.